Welcome, my constant reader friends. I'm Tad, and this is Tad Reads Books and Stuff. All right, so we're at the end of June, so I'm going to do an update real quick of where I'm at with my reading. I'm also going to give a TBR for July, and we're going to talk about one of the books I finished, and that will be Dan Simmons' Hyperion. Now, I did this as a read-along with Grozz on the GKBC, and also Kim on the Paper Traveler said she was going to read this as well. I hope they both got it done. I'm sure Grozz probably did. He reads 1 million pages a day. But I've got this one done. We'll talk about this in a bit. I did finish my Shorty King project for the month, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I will be doing a video for this next week. All right. I have also am continuing, of course, with my, what are we calling it? Our Marvelous Team Up. It's where Grozz and I read a graphic novel or comic book, and we talk about it every couple weeks. We are currently, of course, reading Thirsty Mermaids, Cat Lee. I've got a video for it. I uploaded it and forgot to actually release it. So you'll be seeing that one soon. Our next step in Thirsty Mermaids. Also, I'm joining the Supersize Summer Big Book Read It Long, more than 800 pages. Anyways, that one is going to be done through the summer months. So, we've got a couple months to get this book finished. It's books that are over, get out of the way, books that are over 800 pages. And I'm going to be reading Neal Stephenson's Anathema. This has a lot of pages. We've talked about this before on the channel. Yeah, over 900 pages. Neal Stephenson, Anathema. I'm going to be reading that over the next 3 months. I haven't started reading it yet, so we'll get it done though. All right, so that's going to be part of my TBR for July. Also, yes, I am going to get to shift Book 2 in Hugh Howey's Silo series. Yes, we're going to do that in July. Also, I've been wanting to read this for quite a while. I've had it on my shelf. It's called Devil House by John Darnielle. I don't know anything about John Darnielle. It says here, author of Wolf in White Van and Universal Harvester. I saw this. I don't know why I was drawn to this. Black and white with the red accent. Spooky house. Bat. Must be a vampire story. I don't really know anything about it. But I'm going to be reading this in July finally. And I can't wait to start this. Daughter of Darkness by Terry Brooks. This is book 2 in his, where is it? Child of Light series. I read Child of Light a couple months ago. You can check out my video on that if you want. This is book 2. There is a third book coming, and I'm not sure if he's going to stop at 3 books or if he's going to go on with the series. I don't know. I saw an interview with him where he was hinting maybe 3, maybe 4 books. We'll see what Terry Brooks does. But I can't wait to start that in July. And of course, for my Shorty King project, I'm doing Hearts in Atlantis. This is really a compilation novel. There's like 6 stories in here. Part 1, Low Men in Yellow Coats. There's Blind Willie and Why We're in Vietnam. There's Heavenly Shades of Night Are Falling. Yeah, I guess there's 6 in here. I haven't read this. I've never read this. I guess it's heavily steeped in the Vietnam era stories. I mean, it starts in the Vietnam area. I guess they're kind of consecutive stories that, you know, go together with each other, but it is really kind of a compilation novel, so it's in my Shorty King project. We'll be reading that in July as well. All right, guys, let's get to the review of Hyperion. Hyperion is book 1 in the Hyperion Cantos. Now, book 2, The Fall of Hyperion. Book 3, Endymion. And book 4, The Rise of Endymion. All right, so now it looks like I'm going to have to read all 4. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but I did finally finish Hyperion. I've had this. This is one of those books that I've had on my shelves forever. Of course, I bought it because, like everybody else, this cool ass cover. What is this thing? This is a Shrike here, and the boat sailing through a sea of, looks like grass, wheat, or something. Very interesting. Definitely science fiction. I've had this forever, and I just never read it. A Hugo Award-winning novel. I think I was putting it off because the cover was so cool. I didn't want to be let down if I read it and it was crap. But I have heard a lot of good things about it. So finally, Grozz and I decided, well, Grozz said, hey, you want to read Hyperion with me as a read-along? I said, sure, I just needed a reason. So I read it. Here we go. By Dan Simmons, originally published in 1989. My version has 482 pages, and currently on Goodreads, it's a 4.26. Now, what is this? This is actually modeled after the Canterbury Tales, where you have different characters telling different stories with an overarching story, you know, bringing them all together, almost like sitting around doing a campfire thing. Really interesting. Maybe not for everybody, that type of, you know, storytelling, because it does kind of jump all over the time frame. So I know some people like it more linear, their stories, but this is modeled after Canterbury Tales, but it's also, I feel, a love letter to John Keats, the poet John Keats. He's very influential all throughout this book. So, the first story is The Priest's Tale, or The Man Who Cried God. This story is told by the character Father Hoyt. And this is kind of cool. It's kind of like a story. You'll see these stories have different, maybe genres. This is kind of like a discovery story, like a Christopher Columbus or something, going to a new world and discovering these, or staying with these people who are actually very primitive. Now, these are humans that had originally gone to this other world after the old world, our world, is no longer, well, it's still there, but it's basically been destroyed, of course. So now we're in space. It's definitely science fiction. So these humans went and settled, and as they lived there for years and years and years, hundreds of years, they kind of devolved back into more of a primitive race. And this priest has gone to this colony and is living with them, and some freaky shit happens. You gotta read it. Next, I'm trying to be quick. The Soldier's Tale, or The War Lovers. So this story is told by Colonel Kassad, and it's definitely, it's more of a war story, but there is a lot of sex in this. One of the complaints that I've heard is that there's a lot of gratuitous sex in this novel. I don't know that there's a lot of it. I mean, there is some sex in there. I don't know. It never threw me out of it like it sometimes does in other books that I've read. It really didn't take me out of the story. It wasn't, you know, that I thought gratuitous, but yes, I will agree. It is, some people complain it's very juvenile. It's almost like, you know, some high school teenager writing sex. I understand what you're saying there. It's not the greatest, but I didn't think it was horrible. It didn't throw me out of the story. But it's a war story, and as you can tell, as we're listening to these or reading these stories, these people telling us these stories, it's also filling in a lot of the history of not only Hyperion, but the whole universe, the core, they're calling it, of all these other worlds. Many worlds have been settled and terraformed and different things like that. So you get a lot of this information as these people are telling the stories and filling in, I don't know, your questions, or, but not fully, believe me. That's why there's 4 books, right? So anyways, next, let's get away from that one. The Poet's Tale. Poet's Tale, or Hyperion Cantos. This is told by Martin Silenus, or Silenus, however you say it. Martin Silenus is a poet, and he has this muse, and it makes him write, but then he loses his muse, and he becomes a drunkard, and they take these really cool drugs that can put you back in a specific time of your life, and you can relive, and people get hooked on it. But again, there's like these doorways that you can just walk through and go to another planet, so you don't have this space travel. Unfortunately, if you want to go to Hyperion, though, it doesn't have any of those. So you have to actually fly a spacecraft all the way to Hyperion, and it can take, depending where you're coming from, like 11 years or whatever of travel. You can go into some type of stasis sleep during the trip, but this Poet's Tale, this poet just goes everywhere. He becomes decadent, and he marries many women. But this whole time he's writing the history of him. He actually was born on old Earth. The original Earth, was born there, you know, very rich family, silver spoon in mouth, but he tells these tales of basically what happened, you know, from old Earth through his life. Interesting. Actually, not my favorite of the tales. He's kind of an asshole, and you know the other storytellers give him crap the whole time. But anyways, next, The Scholar's Tale, or The River Lethe's Taste is Bitter. This tale is told by Saul Weintraub, and it is devastating. This tale, and if you have kids, if you have children, like me, you're gonna find a tear. You're gonna find yourself crying. It is a very sad story. I don't want to give it away at all. I'm trying to be kind of cryptic with a lot of these, but really, really a good story. You got to read it. A hint, it's kind of like, well, their daughter gets a disease called the Merlin disease, if you know anything about Merlin and how he lived, or maybe Benjamin Buttons. All right, that's all I'm going to say about it. Very touching. Got to read that one. Next is The Detective's Tale, or The Long Goodbye. This one was really cool. It was like almost like a detective noir type story. This girl, Braun Lamia, tells a story, and she's the detective, and it's kind of I don't know. It reminded me of like Blade Runner. I think kind of that way, you know, you've got these people chasing each other. Again, I don't want to give it away, but she falls in love with the guy who hires her to investigate a killing, his killing. Again, got to read it. Don't want to give too much away. Really good story, another good story. And last but not least is The Consul's Tale, or Remembering Siri. And this is told by the consul. And they don't really give his name, but I mean, you can kind of figure it out towards the end. He's just called the consul. He's very high up in the political realm of this universe. Of course, we're heading towards a war with another faction of humans that are totally, they've had to genetically change themselves because they live in, they actually live in a world that has zero G's, zero gravity. So they've had to change kind of their bodies and how they look, but they actually were originally humans, and they're fighting this core world, the core worlds. It's definitely science fiction. Remembering Siri, again, probably one of the weaker stories, The Consul's Tale, in the book, but it's the last one and it kind of wraps everything up. Again, I'm being very vague with a lot of this. Why? Because I freaking love this book. I gave it 5 stars. Is it my favorite book ever? No, but it's in the top 10 now. I'm putting this squarely in my top 10 favorite books of all time. I enjoyed every second of reading this book. Very, very interesting story. There is hard sci-fi in there, but it is very fantastical as well. Now, again, what are the critiques of this? I mean, the gratuitous sex apparently, again, which didn't really faze me at all. But the worst thing about this book is it's a cliffhanger. You don't have a reconciliation of everything that you want. By the time you're getting to that last story, The Consul's Tale, you realize, oh my God, there's only 80 pages left, you know, or whatever. There's no way they're going to wrap this up. So, of course, you have to read The Fall of Hyperion to finish this section. Now, these are kind of 2 duologies. It's these 2, and then, of course, Endymion and the Rise of Endymion are 2 other ones. As a whole, it's the whole Hyperion Cantos. But yeah, so now I've got to read this one. Don't know when I'm going to get to it. I love this so much. I have heard that this is not as good as this. It's not told the same way like the Canterbury Tales. It's not, you know, 7 people sitting around telling their stories. Why are they telling this story? Because this human race ending war is coming, and these people are all on a pilgrimage to the Shrike. Again, I give a lot away when I do my reviews of books, because it's a Booktube channel, but I'm not giving a lot away with this. Just to tell you, it is awesome. I loved it. Please give it a chance if you haven't. I don't know what else to say. I'm hooked. I can't wait to see what Grozz says about it. I can't wait to see what Kim feels about it. But I loved it. And that's all I'm going to say. I got to stop myself. All right, guys. If you found any entertaining value in my videos, please like and subscribe. Please leave me comments. Tell me what you think of this book if you've read it, or if you even have any interest in reading it. I think you should. I think it's great. A lot of people that don't like science fiction or don't read science fiction, I still think you can enjoy this because it is a lot of fantasy, fantastical things in it, and it's cool. It's just a cool story. All right, guys. So until next time, peace out.